Hello and welcome. Welcome this beautiful morning to our webinar discussion about the decentralized finance regulation and regulation of other innovative financial services. Today we have several nice guests in our discussion. Let me introduce them. Audrius Šilgalis, Head of Investment Services and Undertakings Supervision Division at the Bank of Lithuania.
Good morning, everyone.
Oleg Marafeev, Chief Product Owner of Open Banking at Swedbank.
Morning, guys.
Hello. We also have another guest that might be joining any minute, so don't be surprised. Let me kick off by the short introduction. Well, I will not be talking that much myself as actually asking my guests. So the first to lay the ground for the discussion, let's talk a bit about the emerging trends that we are seeing now on the market and some buzzwords, crypto, decentralized finance, and other fintech innovations that are around. Well, the ICO boom has subsided. It has been prevalent 2 or 3 years ago, and now we have other buzzwords in the media. One of them is decentralized finance, and we see the growth of it, and all the other instruments that are related to trading cryptocurrencies and leverage and other fancy financial technologies that are being used in this area. This field is not only it's not only focusing on decentralized finance. There are other innovations in this area too, and we will talk about them today as well. But let me start with asking my participants of these discussions for your view. What are the hottest innovations in this area that you see, and also how do they complement or compete with the traditional financial system? Maybe I could start with you, Oleg.
Yeah, in terms of innovations in decentralized finance, I'd say I see quite a huge development, but I start with it's not rather but it is I think that if decentralized finance solutions would be able to implement those, and would make sense to implement those in a small scale, then I would think that right now we would see some things that are actually really blooming already in the market. But I think that they are the victim. The decentralized finance is sort of a victim of its own super scalability, that they make sense. I think that the decentralized finance solutions and services, they make sense in a really large scale. So from that point of view, it requires a lot of time to actually have this proper uptake. So I think that, the scale should be even bigger than what we have. Even the bank that I work with. So basically, they should, it's like truly a global solutions. I do see several promising projects, I can say, but of course there are still so many open topics in terms of regulation. And I think that there is one unicorn that should be we should see, not in traditional way unicorn, that's sort of not from financial point of view, but rather one thing that should still appear before we will be able to see a proper innovational model that is poisoned for success, is decentralized autonomous organization. Because this is sort of in my book, this is sort of a precondition. Because that if you're looking from it as a purist of a decentralized finance and the business models around it, then I think that this is something that needs to be built. It needs to be proven that it's working. once it's there, then I think, wow. I mean, the potential is still enormous. To highlight something today, that I would say that this is something that is clearly already today beating traditional players. Maybe I'm just looking a little bit inside out, but from my point of view, it's still a bit too early. But there are obviously several really promising projects.
Thank you. Audrius, what is your view? What are the biggest trends that you see, and how do they interact with the traditional established system?
Yeah, so I would like to start from the definition of innovation. So what innovation is? If we are talking about finance, we see that, well, new trends, decentralized finance, they are creating not a new service like lending, it's still lending, but they are creating new ways how to provide these services. So is it innovation? Looking from the technical perspective, yes, because they use decentralized finance, they use blockchain technology, which is new. And in my opinion, blockchain is the biggest innovation of last 5 years, and it has extremely big potential in financial market, in other ways how we do our daily activities. So it can make a really huge impact. But will it make such a big impact to established institutions? Probably not. Why? Because as we know, all of established banks now are exploring this technology. They are searching for possibilities to adapt it either inside the banking processes or either when they are trying to create new products and services for customers. So here I would like to talk about the technology itself and how it changes the regular activities of financial institutions.
Okay. Yes, definitely. The what we call an innovation is an open question, and I guess in a broad sense, it's anything that that we haven't seen before, and it has a potential to disrupt the current ways of working and current established players, so to say. But I agree with you that the traditional banks they definitely are looking into this all these innovations and monitoring what is happening closely and thinking about how to maybe integrate those innovations into their traditional business models, or even change their models, business models, to adapt to the changing world and the new technologies that are arising. Probably Oleg can comment on this more. How are traditional banks trying to monitor those trends, and what are you planning to do with these innovations?
Probably we have some technical problems.
I think we have connection problems.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. So we obviously do investigate, and actually we have had, to be honest, we actually have had a pre-study or a white paper around was 3 years ago. 3 years ago, we had even a pre-study on some distributed ledger solution for the industry, which we thought, and I still actually believe that it makes sense, because we introduced it actually to all the industry. We did both legal and technical pre-study, and we prepared quite a thorough white paper. It was sort of, because we do believe that in the coming years and starting from now, one of the key assets that will be super valuable and sensitive will be our customer data. And we sort of saw this opportunity that to use the technology within the industry to enable a customer, empower a customer to basically share, to have the power to share the data that is stored within multiple industry players. So if, let's say, Swedbank has some sort of a data, and that data needed tomorrow at Lithuanian bank or central bank, or if it's needed at, I don't know, whatever, the TV provider, the internet provider, then customer would be able to share it because that's his data. So we sort of had this initiative, and at that point of a time, and I guess this is the challenge within the industry, because right now everybody's so focused on, within the banking industry, everybody's so focused on being compliant, they're implementing the regulations. So sort of we saw that the guys said that that's a brilliant idea, but this is like a spaceship to build, because everybody's afraid of the technology, everybody's afraid of technical challenges. So basically we were looking at that in the customer from a customer data perspective, and then as Audrius mentioned, we're also looking to it in certain business processes, such as a little bit in trading, a little bit in trade finance, and we also are considering ourselves, our model, or our services in a future model, because if you think, again, I'm taking too much here, but it's a very long answer, but I do think that it is already today the reality that currently smart contracts, which is basically the key topic or key mechanism to enable the decentralized finance solutions, they are operating within the decentralized, the distributed ledger environment. It's very difficult to enforce certain things in the real world. So from that point of view, we're also considering what will be our role once the big public decentralized finance or any distributed ledger solutions will become or blockchain solutions will become mainstream. Then I believe then the banks will still have some sort of a role that they can perform, because we do some things in a pretty good manner. So I will be able later to just elaborate on those.
Okay, thanks a lot. And we have another guest in the discussion, Sumit Kishore. He's a business lead at Codifi Compliance and head of operations at Consensys, Poland. Hello. Thanks for joining.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. I will have a question right now to you, but before I do that, before I pose that question, I want to address the audience that has connected to this webinar, and we want you to answer several questions in the poll that will be posted very soon in the comments. So please fill in that information. We're really interested in the audience and your reactions and what organizations you represent, and we just want to know you better. So please reply to the questions. It really takes less than a minute. Sumit, thanks again for joining. I want to ask you about what problems, challenges, and issues does decentralized finance and other similar innovations in the fintech area face from the regulatory point of view or from the legal point of view today?
Well, it's a very interesting and I think this is one of the main questions. So there are a lot of companies which are coming in DeFi space, and they the most common question is like they are not completely aware with the regulatory framework that they have to follow, because it's not only the companies they need to be regulated, but it's also the governments are just on the learning stage at this stage right now. So what happened is you have a company from Singapore or you have a DeFi company from London, they all are working sort of AML CFT best practices framework. There is no defined framework which they need to follow. So it's always all of their compliance officers trying to follow the best practices and trying to be accurate or trying to be less wrong as possible. But there is no defined framework. So that is actually one of the things. Another one is like which protocols they should, they should build their platforms on. For example, right now on Ethereum, it's over the largest percentage of DeFi activities are happening on Ethereum. So most of the DeFi companies are choosing, Ethereum as the main protocols. So far, it is good, but still, the guidelines are missing from the regulators and government's side. One of the few countries who define there are, for example, Gibraltar or even Luxembourg, or right now the US is also, very active. So I think the main is missing guidelines because there are multiple companies who can fulfill those guidelines. So I would say the regulated framework is missing. That's the bigger challenge. And then once the framework is available, then it's on DeFi companies how they fulfill it. So they need to have A, compliance officer, B, tools like Codify Compliance or other tools to fulfill and to complete the gap.
Clear. I guess it's a bit of some players say that it's a bit of a wild west and unregulated space, and probably some players agree that it's not the best setup for sure. I want to address to Odris and ask his view. What do you think are the main challenges in this area? It might be decentralized finance or other novelties in the fintech area, blockchain based or otherwise. What are the main problems and challenges from the regulatory perspective?
Yeah, so funny thing to mention, I'm working for the central bank, and in its name, centralization is mentioned. So talking from the regulatory perspective, well, everyone understands that regulation is always lagging behind the innovation. So we need to understand what's happening in the markets, and after that decide, do we need to regulate, and if we need, how to do it. So first regulation which was introduced to decentralized finance was introduced with AML 5th directive. So it's talking only about prevention of money laundering, and only now Europe has provided the information about possible regulation of crypto space that's called MiCA regulation, and it provided also a solution for DLT for the infrastructure. So it introduced a pilot regime for DLT market infrastructure. So that's only first moves to regulating crypto space and decentralized finance. And talking about regulation, do we need it or not? There's a trade-off. There's a trade-off between innovation, decentralization, new technologies, and consumer protection. So as a regulators, well, we should seek for the benefits for both sides. So for companies who are providing services and for consumers, but consumers, well, consumer protection is one of the tasks of regulators. So we pay big attention to this task. And what are the biggest challenges when talking about decentralized finance or virtual currencies? So the first one is AML. We have scandals everywhere in the world, and personally, my opinion, why everything is moving from the centralized space to decentralized finance is AML requirements. Yes, they are really strict at the moment, and if you want to avoid them, you can do everything in decentralized way. Well, and another problems are connected with consumer protection and lack of central entity. Well, as a supervisors, we need to have some contact. We need to have persons who can explain us what they are doing, how they are doing, and who could, well, understand our requirements. So probably these are the main problems and the main topics in the supervisory scene.
Thank you. Very interesting view. And building upon your answer, I would like to ask, is one of the reasons why decentralized finance became so popular in the recent times is that of the lack of regulation. There is much more space. Well, I will not imply about some anti-money laundering or money laundering activities or other illegal things, but in general, since there's way less regulation or virtually no regulation, is this one of the reasons why it is so popular? What do you think, Sumit?
Well, I think the DeFi became popular because of in simple reason, effectivity. It is super effective for 5 companies to make a deal together, interact with each other, and provide the service to consumer rather than the centralized world. Because if 5 companies are supposed to work together and provide answer to a 6th level consumer, then company A, B, C, D, E, they need to work together, pass the information, decide, make centralized decisions, and then the consumer get the answer. Here in DeFi space, it's all happening just by itself, and you believe in the protocols. So I think one of the biggest reason is effectivity, not missing regulations. Now, as we can find, this is super effective to make a finance activity, institutional activity, enterprise activity on DeFi. Now we need to think, how can we regulate so that we can secure the consumers? So I would look at it from the different side that we found a very effective solution, so consumers can have a huge benefit. Now consumers can have a huge benefit, so definitely they will be shifting towards this movement. But now if they shift towards this movement, as a government, they need to make sure that consumers are secure. That's where the regulations are coming and implementing, sort of frameworks and guidelines on DeFi solutions. Now, as it is DeFi, decentralized finance, so it will happen anyway. Well, if it will happen anyway, how can you secure or procure it like? And that's where, let's say, if I give you the AML CFT tool, will make an AML check on the addresses that you are transactioning with. But you cannot control it, you cannot stop it, because it will happen. But if you're based in a specific country, you will know based on your regulations how and at what level you have a risk while dealing with those addresses. So I think the reason for me is very simple, is the effectiveness. It is effective, it is productive, it is fast, it is much more profitable, because if there is a less of back office jobs, then of course the companies will not charge 15%, let's say admin fee, they can charge only a 2%. And now as all the companies are DeFi, so you can see company A is charging 2%, another one is 1.8, another one is 1.7, and consumer can decide with the help of smart contract to pick the best deal and just execute it. So this is just the best way for consumers. So it finally actually brings a lot of benefits to consumers. But regulations are required just to secure them. Regulations are not the reasons for, I think, stopping or making DeFi.
Yes, thank you. I think I failed in my provocation. I was trying to provoke you a little bit with this question, but talking about those 2% or similar overheads, I think you would agree that since we need more regulation, or at least you seem to say this, the need for those AML officers, compliance functions, and other similar back office functions will rise, even in within decentralized finance, which naturally will decrease the profitability. Is that correct?
It is absolutely correct. And also, if I could add something, like a few weeks ago, last month, I was on one of the summit, and there I was discussing with people from enterprises, like how DeFi can fit enterprises. And one of their interesting came out was DeFi also, I guess, soon will be available in big enterprise solutions. So like all these big enterprises where you have trillions dollars of transactions, $1 billion of transactions. So not only you will be going to a new DeFi, a startup with 50,000 users, you probably have DeFi solutions for billions of users soon. It just DeFi firms has to be regulated. They need to match the transitions to the enterprise solution, because enterprise is using a specific set of infrastructure, and if a DeFi solution is built following the similar infrastructure, then it is easier for a DeFi company to be transitioned to a bigger enterprise, get integrated, and start providing the services to the billions of people. So this is definitely going to happen. So I don't think there is any, there's no doubt. It's just a question of like how soon those problems will be solved from regulation side. I think I know that there are not too many news in the market, but still it's happening pretty fast. It's moving. Like a lot of frameworks are coming. For example, we have a FATF, the travel rule, which was the most discussed in this last 8-9 months, about sharing the data and between the WASP, and making sure that consumer data is being aware for all the WASP, and they are sure that who they're dealing with. A lot of custodian company in the DeFi space are working on building kind of verified addresses. Some people call it qualified address database, somebody call verified address database. But in that case, all they're trying to do, they're trying to figure out how to make sure that who you deal with, you know them, or either you can trust them even if you do not know them. And once this part is, once consumer as well as regulators and companies are feeling comfortable, the three segments, I think we will have a huge shift, and the transactions in DeFi will increase rapidly.
Thank you, Sumit. Oleg, do you agree with Sumit's thoughts that it's not that because of DeFi is generally, this industry is generally unregulated? That was one of the reasons of the DeFi boom. What is your view on the success and popularity?
I think that, well, generally, I do agree. I do agree that it's not only about not being regulated. I think that technology in itself also plays a role. I somehow believe that it's actually basically, it's a lot of pieces that fall together, because I think that as you started this whole meeting, you said that we had the boom of ICOs just years ago, and I think that this is also plays a role, because the money went into industry, and right now basically the guys have resource to work with things, and this is, I would say, super important. And actually thinking about the current economical state at all, that where a lot of investors sitting on a pot of money and looking for a holy grail or something that will have some positive yield even with enormous risk, then I think that like this is just perfect timing from an economical point of view, that companies have resources to work within that area, even though I do believe that it is challenging, as it was in ICO time, to build a model that will, because I think that basically with DeFi, at least from my point of view, and maybe some might have like a little bit different point of view, but I do believe that there will be models that will obviously be like mind-blowing, that will take the place, but I somehow still believe that those models should be like at least covering a big region, so they should be like pretty global. I somehow do believe that for local solutions, or at least there should be like an industry or a market, a bigger scale solutions, because otherwise if you're building something for 5 companies, I mean, I still do believe that it's more or less a centralized solution will be able to suit you, unless you have enormous appetite of a growth and of scalability. And this is, I think, that where things will start make sense. Because I mean, if you think about it, that you would build some sort of a product that will actually, current viewers who are watching us would be receiving a benefit for watching us, because we would be showing ads in this stream, then what could be the best possible financial tool actually to distribute their benefits? And this could be actually the decentralized finance could distribute. You just create for each of the viewer, you create a wallet and you distribute them their tokens, which they can later exchange to whatever currency they live in. So this is where I see the biggest applicability of DeFi solutions. And yes, and then I think that then it starts to make sense what traditional banks can do, because in some cases I still think that user experience is still like it has a long way to go, because a lot of people, like, I mean, if you just read currently the forums and everything, the people are losing access to their wallets. They like just sharing their wallets with someone. So it's sort of that part of the user experience is missing, and I think that will help a lot together with regulation. So there are like a lot of bits and pieces that will sort of should fit together. So in my books, yeah, that's how it looks. And in terms of regulation, I will just take one more minute, because I think that like I'm still this. I'm a believer. I'm maybe this purist of this distributed ledger solutions, and I do believe that regulation actually can be pretty futuristic in the future, because sort of if the community that works within some certain we can call it a project, understands the problem of money laundering, of financing terrorism, whatever the problem they see, then more or less it's for the community to find how the first solutions have been built by enthusiasm or the community that has seen a problem. So basically, if community sees a problem, then they build a technical solution and they sort of give it to the current centralized or current real world institutions and say that, guys, if you want to play a role here, if you want to perform for us anti-money laundering service, you will receive a Bitcoin for, well, a fraction of a Bitcoin for each transaction. Go ahead and do it. Central bank, if you want to like sort of make it legal for your country users to sort of to your market users to have it like this benefit, go ahead and implement the law, and I don't know, you will be motivated also somehow, I guess, not by Bitcoins, but still you'll be motivated. So I think that the regulation should sort of also, from that perspective, turn upside down, not top down, but rather bottom up, where community sort of sees the need, what needs to be regulated, and then enables the current real world players to perform those functions.
Very interesting view. Thank you. A couple of weeks ago, we had a discussion, a similar discussion with some players from the decentralized finance area, including some investors. And one of the thoughts that that was said there by the participants of the discussion was that this new world of, well, particularly blockchain-based solutions is so different fundamentally in its inherent construction that it is very hard to regulate using the tools, the traditional tools that exist today in our legal codes and whatnot. So probably we need to think about very innovative ways to regulate and to make sense out of, well, to make sure that consumers' rights are protected, to make sure that money laundering principles and other important compliance factors ensured. Audrius, I wanted to ask about you. Well, first, obviously, I had a question of, do we need regulation in this area? But everybody agrees that we do need. Probably there's no discussion here. I wanted a bit more conflicting views in here, but unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I'm failing at this one. All of our participants today agreed that we need regulation, and then we will probably come later about in what format and what regulation do we need. Audrius, could you talk about what is coming what's new, what is been cooking, and what is new and coming within the regulation, namely the MiCA initiative, DLT, and other initiatives on the European Union and other areas.
Yes, of course. But before that, I would like to agree with Oleg's thoughts that regulation should come from the users. So in order to do that, as a central bank, we have created sandbox and newcomer project, newcomer program. So that's for new companies who want to try and test their solutions in some kind of regulatory environment, and also for a central bank to learn about those technologies. Well, we are the first one in Europe and probably in the world who have created an LB chain, so blockchain sandbox for companies who want to create some blockchain solutions in the regulated market. So as a regulator, we are currently learning, trying to understand the technologies and trying to understand what regulations we could and should apply to those solutions. And yes, definitely the current tools we have are not suited for all of the solutions. So we need to think about RegTech solutions, about new ways how to supervise the new entities which are working in crypto or blockchain space. Talking about coming regulations, so 1 month ago, European Commission has presented few initiatives. So first one is a proposal for a regulation of on markets and crypto assets. So that's a MiCA regulation, and the goal of this regulation is to bring some legal certainty to the crypto space, to support innovation, and also to add consumer protection to that market. So European Commission provided well, the first proposals, and they proposed to regulate not only the companies which are working in crypto space, so the companies such as wallet providers, such as exchanges and others, but they also introduced two types of regulated crypto assets. So stable coins, two types of stable coins. First one is asset reference token. So that's a stable coin which value is connected with a few currencies or few cryptocurrencies or other assets. And other type of regulated tokens would be e-money tokens. So that's just a standard e-money issued by e-money institutions or banks, but issued with blockchain technology. So the coming regulations are being discussed at the moment. So market players and regulators are providing their questions, possible changes to European Commission, and European Commission hopes to finish this process until the end of next year. So all market players have a chance to provide comments at the moment, and we encourage them to do so. Talking directly about blockchain, so European Commission has proposed a pilot regime for market infrastructures based on distributed ledger technology. Well, everyone understands that blockchain could make a big impact, and the biggest impact could be made in the trading field. So at the moment we have central depositories, we have other intermediaries which are included into the process of trading. So blockchain could eliminate most of them to increase efficiency, to increase speed, and in order to use that technology, we need to either to change some laws or to make some exemptions from them. So at the moment, European Commission has decided to create a pilot regime for new type of micro market infrastructures in order to develop secondary market for tokenized financial instruments and to to encourage another innovations in this field.
Thank you. It's interesting thought about bringing the regulation from top down and incentivizing users, maybe regulators as well, by fractions of coins and whatnot, for making sure that everything is correct in that world. Sumit, do you have any comments on the upcoming regulation? What is your view?
Well, if there is any regulations coming, it's about either protecting the consumer data. B is about making sure that you're not dealing with any illicit fraud funds. So in general, it's only these 2 points, or maybe 3, which would be like not funding the activities which could be terrorism or drug dealing or something. So when you simplify all the regulatory requirements, it comes that they are very similar to each other around the world. Solutions are available by which you can customize, because I think 3 years, 4 years ago, there was no AML solutions easily available where you could customize it. So what you would get as a DeFi company or as a user, a score. An address is getting a score, B minus, C minus, something like that. But now you can customize the settings of compliance based on regulations, based on countries, based on type of users. You can activate, deactivate, validate a lot of things by the service provider, by their compliance service provider. It could be either us or any of our competitor. So I think for DeFi company right now, it's an amazing time, because they can actually be regulated and still provide the same services to everyone. So how I see is DeFi firms, they definitely require sort of regulatory framework to protect the consumers. They mostly designed by people who believe in consumer data to be protected. So I have not come across very often some solutions which are revealing the customer's data. So C, regulatory requirements can be adjusted, can be fulfilled by the solutions which are already available. So I think it's going in a pretty solid direction. It's an interesting take from Audrius that it should come the other way around, that regulations should come from the consumers. I'm just thinking how, who will be taking the lead, because if I have the control, so we have a small software within Consensus that we are making internally. That's called a tagging framework. So imagine if I tag your address that you are, let's say, I tag your address in a negative way, then what is the credential here? What is the validity? Yeah, should you believe me or you should not? And you say, okay, one person's tag you negatively. What about if other 5 people also tag you negatively? Then will you believe those 6 people who, because there is a negative response, but whether you can trust this data or not? If somebody is checking your address from Canada, looking at your address, and 5 people or 6 people from Poland give negative feedback on your address, then the person dealing from Canada would not be comfortable dealing with you without knowing that these 6 people comment may matter, may not matter, right? So how will you tag, So in simple words, it's called data attributes, off-chain data in the compliance. So we have an on-chain data, which is like all about transactions and the network data. Then we have off-chain data. And off-chain data is one of the most beautiful thing, and I would say interesting topic in the next 4 or 5 years for compliance companies. how they're going to build the off-chain data, how they're going to connect all the blockchain data with the world, and how truthful, how correct, how accurate it is going to be matters a lot. Actually, in the long run, any company which has, in my opinion, a very good off-chain data will be the winner, because on-chain data is an engineering problem. It's a technical problem that we have lots of good engineers around the world who could either do it today or learn it tomorrow. But gathering the accurate off-chain data going to be a big challenge. It's an operational activity. It's a corporation activity. So I see how it will work, and that's why if consumers are going to perform AML check, I wonder how it will work. But it's an interesting take. A lot of things happen which were absolute new. So why not this one? But I would say if we have viewers who are DeFi companies, that there are solutions available. It is not super easy, but yes, it is definitely doable to meet the regulatory requirements. And if not the defined regulatory requirement, but definitely the best practices, and keep your users good, keep your users safe, and keep your company safe from the financial risk.
Thank you. We have about 10 minutes left in our discussion. I would encourage the viewers to post their questions if they have any. We haven't seen any so far, but please go ahead if you have any questions. I would like to ask Oleg, from your point of view, do you have any recommendations? What do you think, what kind of regulation should be enforced? Well, maybe not enforced either from top down or bottom up. What do you think would make sense?
Yeah, so I think that we're like going in a pretty natural way. So when we started with the ML, this is sort of a, because ML and KYC sort of just onboard the user. So then you would know who he is, and this is actually also a little bit contradicting thing, because once the whole concept has been built, it has been built around, well, maybe not anonymity, but it's pseudonymity. And right now we're talking about ML and KYC, but again, I guess I'm spoiled with this, with the being already for many years in a centralized bank, and then sort of I'm thinking in a fairly classical way that first you need to understand whom you're working with, to whom you're distributing your assets or sending money, receiving money, whatever, signing an agreement with. And I guess if we think, basically we can either start applying the existing framework that we are applying, but in a very like slower pace towards the classical financial market players, and in a much lighter perspective, because then that's actually because the whole regulatory framework, even though, I mean, we hate it, the banks hate it, because it's like it's half of the investment budget are going there, and then just another half, if we're lucky, then going to the future proofing the business or sort of making the innovation. So from that point of view, nobody likes it. But on the other hand, it's been built as a rules in the air industry, sort of. But they have been built because of some cases. It's not have been built, because just somebody wanted, like, yeah, okay, let's figure out the way how to make this life for the banks more complex. So from that point of view, I guess so more or less we would be repeating the classical regulation steps. Capital adequacy, yada 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 yada. So you can go the very classical way. Again, I'm not 100% sure that this is something that would make sense, because as you referred to this previous discussion that you've had with also, we can see industry representatives, they also pointed out that we are repeating them the same path, and then I guess it will always keep us behind. So from my point of view, the best way to figure out which regulations are needed, I think that we need I still have this belief, because I mean this is how the whole concept have been built, and this is in my books is like super powerful, because if you look at I can take a classical thing, a Bitcoin, like, from a white paper in 2000, what it was, 8, or 7 or 6. Yeah, it was, I think 8 was like this crisis product, financial crisis product. So after that, we having a network, the biggest network with the biggest computing power in the world, which is like above anything else. So sort of it has, I still believe that it has this the power, the idea and the idea behind it, the concept behind it, still have a lot of power. So I do believe in communities. So I'm cutting my story short. So I do think that there is a need for a professional community of enthusiasts who are interested in decentralized finance and who do understand the regulatory manner, like, I don't know, Alders himself and the other guys who are like enthusiastic about that, can come up and more or less post requirements towards regulatory bodies that this is something that we need, that should happen, and then again enforcing those requirements. Maybe we could implement different ways of enforcing it. So instead of reporting to central banks or any other entities, I think that there could be found much more creative ways that basically just those entities have the access to the general ledger and can get the information from there. So sort of it is a bit also about changing the way how it is implemented. Sometimes it can be actually implemented, because I think that what others and what central banks have, they have an understanding of those corner cases. So they're basically when problem is defined, they're good in structuring it. So if their community gives you an order for what needs to be structured, then these guys can structure it, and then the technical community sort of implements it in a way that will be times more efficient than what we're having right now in the centralized finance world. So yeah, maybe it's a bit philosophical, but that's my view on that.
Thank you. Audrius, I want to ask you, well, you mentioned that it will take about a year for MiCA and similar regulation initiatives to be implemented. Part of the reason why it takes so long is that regulators want to take the market view into account as well, and you said that the regulators are waiting for feedback and comments and suggestions from the market in order to give attention to their view. Up until then, and maybe including in those regulations, from the point of view as a regulator body and supervising authority, what would be your recommendations in terms of regulation for decentralized finance and blockchain-based solutions and similar novelties?
Yeah, so from the cases I see and the feedback I receive from the market or from the other market players, I understand that sometimes innovators are afraid of regulators. So they do not understand the requirements. They do not want to talk to us. So I would like to encourage companies who are creating some kind of solutions for financial sectors, just to talk to regulators. We are open. Please inform us what you are doing. Maybe we could provide you our thoughts at this moment, what could or should be changed in the model in order it to work and to be compliant. So I encourage the discussion. You are always welcome. You can call us, you can come to us, you can present your model and just have a chat with us. Because regulation is not bad. Sometimes we can help to you, because to be regulated is, in my opinion, is better than to work outside the regulation and to be afraid of what happens if something goes wrong.
Sounds revolutionary, but simple and very logical when you say it. one really last questions. We have only 2 minutes left. Sumit, summarizing our discussion today, well, we focused mainly on regulation, but maybe you could offer a view on the future. What do you think is the future of DeFi and similar trends and similar innovations? Can they disrupt the traditional banking? Can they complement? What is your view on the future?
I think the DeFi will be rather augmented into the existing global financial system. So I know people like the word disrupt a lot. So it is not, in my opinion, going to disrupt completely. It's just going to be augmented, integrated, and just going to enhance a lot of business processes from the effective side. I've spent around 13 years in business processes. Like, when you are in a bank, you're just doing the basic job. So I think a lot of all these activities will be just transformed to the new mechanism in the enterprises using DeFi solutions. Because using DeFi solutions, thanks to blockchain, trust is there, confirmation is there, conditions are in smart contracts, execution is there, timing is there. So you do not need a lot of business processes, and that saves a lot of money for the enterprises to save the back office job, to bring the effectivity to the consumers, the accuracy. So businesses will have a lot of benefits, and it will also open a lot of new activities to the consumers to lend the money to each other, to insure each other. So a lot of peer-to-peer activities will be popping up in future. Like, there is no possibility for 5 of us to buy, let's say, a property in, I'm just making it up, in Nigeria right now, right? But what if a real estate has all the contracts and everything on distributed ledger, confirmation of the company on distributed ledger, we can verify and we can just buy the property. And we cannot, let's say, buy property for 100,000 euros as one person, but we can put 25 people. We 5 people do not need to know. Just thanks to the reputation built up on DeFi, we can just make a step and do something together, right? So a lot of financials activity can be done and will be done in DeFi. I also see DeFi would be in enterprises soon at very large scale. So that would be the eye-opening for a lot of industry, that how fast DeFi will come and scale in the traditional market. Many people will not know that under the hood it's DeFi which is running their operations, but yes, it will be. So yeah, but I'm not usually this prediction guy. I don't like making predictions. It's like, sounds so serious. I believe that it will happen. It's simple. When you're building a highway between Berlin and Frankfurt, a highway where you can drive a car at 150 km per hour, in certain period of time when the highway will be ready, people will save time and people will be effective. So we are those kind of people. We are kind of builders who are building this highway. So we know when the highway will be ready, life would be much more effective. So this is how I can say, but I will not predict that life would be great. Yeah, it is already great.
Thank you for your thoughts. It seems like all the participants of this discussion agree that regulation, if not good, is necessary, or maybe good. Maybe everyone can adhere to that. That we need probably different kinds of regulation because it's a totally different world, and there's some inherent differences in a decentralized world that probably the traditional tools and methods that are today regulating the centralized banking world, or not only banking, financial world, might not work either at all or efficiently, and we might need to involve even the people participating to increase the compliance and increase the regulation, and making sure that that our world is safe, the consumer rights are protected, the money is not laundered, and everybody is happy at the end of the day. Thank you very much for participating today. Thank you, Oleg. Thank you, Audrius. Thank you, Sumit. Looking forward to nice insights in the future. Thanks everybody for watching, and please fill in the survey that is in the comments. We really want to know more about our viewers. Thanks a lot, and until next time.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.